Martin Guerre, a French peasant of the 16th century, was at the center of a famous case of imposture. Several years after Martin Guerre had left his wife, child, and village, a man claiming to be him appeared. He lived with Guerre's wife and son for 3 years. The false Martin Guerre was eventually suspected of the impersonation. He was tried, discovered to be a man named Arnaud Dutil, and executed. The real Martin Guerre had returned during the trial. The case continues to be studied and dramatized to this day. Historical account: Life before leaving his wife. Martin Daguerre was born around 1524 in the Basque town of Hendaye. In 1527, his family moved to the village of Artigas in the Pyrenees of southwestern France. They changed their name to Guerre. When he was about 14 years old, Martin married Bertrand de Roy, the daughter of a well-off family. The marriage was childless for 8 years until a son was born. Accused of stealing grain from his father, Martin abruptly disappeared in 1548. Canon law did not allow his abandoned wife to remarry. Martin Guerre's supposed return. In the summer of 1556, a man arrived in Artigas who claimed to be the long-gone Martin Guerre. By his similar looks and detailed knowledge of Guerres life, he convinced most of the villagers. Martin Guerre's uncle and 4 sisters, as well as his wife Bertrand, believed the man was Guerre, as he claimed, although doubts remained. The man who had returned as Martin Guerre lived for 3 years with Bertrand and her son. They had 2 children together, with 1 daughter surviving. He claimed the inheritance of Guerre's father, who had died. When he sued Guerre's paternal uncle, Pierre Guerre, who had married Bertrand's widowed mother during Martin Guerre's long absence for part of the inheritance, Pierre became suspicious. He and his wife tried to convince Bertrand that the returnee was an impostor. A soldier who passed through Artigas claimed the man was a fraud, pointing out that the true Martin had lost a leg in the war. Pierre and his sons-in-law attacked the returnee with a club, but Bertrand intervened. In 1559, villagers accused the returnee of arson and of impersonating the real Martin Guerre. With Bertrand remaining on his side, he was acquitted in 1560. Trial in Rue. In the meantime, Pierre Guerre had been asking around and believed he had uncovered the identity of the impostor. Arnaud Dutil, nicknamed Pansette, was a man with a poor reputation from the nearby village of Til in the region of Saja. Pierre initiated a new case against the man by falsely claiming to act in Bertrand's name. Only the wronged wife could bring the suit. He and his wife and Bertrand's mother pressured Bertrand to support the charge, to which she eventually agreed. In 1560, the case was tried in Rue. Bertrand testified that, at first, she had honestly believed the man to be her husband, but that she had since realized that he was an impostor. Both Bertrand and the accused independently related an identical story about their intimate life from before 1548. The man claiming to be Martin then challenged her. If she would swear that he was not her husband, he would gladly agree to be executed. Bertrand remained silent. After hearing from more than 150 witnesses, with many testifying they recognized Martin Guerre, including his 4 sisters, many others testifying to Arnaud Dutil's identity, and others refusing to take a side, the accused was convicted and sentenced to death by beheading. Appeal, and Martin Guerre reappears. The condemned man immediately appealed to the Parlement of Toulouse. Officials arrested Bertrand and Pierre on charges of false accusation and, in the case of Pierre, soliciting perjury. The returnee eloquently argued his case, and the judges in Toulouse tended to believe his version of the story, that Bertrand was pressured to perjury by the greedy Pierre Guerre. The accused had to undergo detailed questioning about his past. His statements were double-checked, and no contradictions were found. Then, dramatically, a man appeared in Toulouse during the trial with a wooden leg, claiming to be the true Martin Guerre. When asked about the married couple's past, the man had forgotten some details and was not able to answer the questions as well as the alleged impostor. However, when the 2 men were both presented to the Guerre family, the case was closed. Pierre, Bertrand, and Martin's 4 sisters all agreed that the newly arrived man was the true Martin Guerre. The impostor, who maintained his innocence, was convicted and sentenced to death for adultery and fraud. The public sentencing on the 12th of September 1560 was attended by Michel de Montaigne. Afterward, the condemned confessed. He had learned about Guerres' life after 2 men had confused him with Guerre. He had then decided to take Guerre's place, with 2 conspirators helping him with the details. He apologized to all involved, including Bertrand, for having deceived them. He was hanged in front of Martin Guerre's house in Artigas 4 days later. Martin's life during his absence. During his long absence from Artigas, the real Martin Guerre had moved to Spain, where he served in the militia for a cardinal and next in the army of Pedro de Mendoza. As part of the Spanish army, he was sent to Flanders. He was wounded in the Spanish attack on St. Quentin in 1557. His leg had to be amputated. For years, Guerre lived in a monastery before returning to his wife and family. The reason for his return at the time of the trial is unknown. Initially, he rejected his wife's apologies, maintaining that she should have known better than to take another man. Contemporary accounts and interpretations. 2 contemporary accounts of the case were written, Histoire admirable by Guillaume Le Sieur, and the better-known Arrest mémorable by Jean de Cora, one of the trial judges in Toulouse. In 1983, Princeton University history professor Natalie Zeman Davis published a detailed exploration of the case in her book, The Return of Martin Guerre. She argued that Bertrand had silently or explicitly agreed to the fraud because she needed a husband in that society, and she was treated well by the impostor. Davis noted as evidence for this theory the improbability of a woman's mistaking a stranger for her husband, Bertrand's support for Arnaud until, and even partially during, the trial, and their shared story of intimacy, likely prepared in advance. The historian Robert Finlay has criticized Davis's conclusions, arguing that Bertrand was duped, as most of her contemporaries believed, including the trial judges, after her husband's long absence. He thought that Davis attempted to superimpose a modern societal model of an independent woman making her own choices onto the historical account. He points to the improbability of Bertrand's charging her own accomplice with fraud, as she would run the risk of having to defend herself against charges of adultery or false accusation. Davis responded to Finlay's argument in her article On the Lame in the same issue of the American Historical Review in June 1988.